Before we consider how Islamic finance operates with ESG factors within the Islamic moral economy, it is important to think about certain social risks linked to how Islamic finance is currently performing. These risks are the credibility risk, legitimacy risk, Sharia risk, social risk, and sustainability risk. Let us now look into these risk areas in more detail. The credibility risk is a major concern when assessing the risk performance of Islamic banks. This is because the practices of Islamic banks are often questioned based on the expectations set by the Islamic moral economy. It aims to assess as to how the current practice of Islamic finance is credible in relation to the aspirational expectations of Islamic moral economy. The goal of Islamic moral economy is to make people's well-being the main focus of growth. As a way for this system to work, Islamic banking was created to help bring about the Islamic idea of growth that is in line with the maqasid al-Sharia. According to Chopra, the maqasid al-Sharia are the most important ones. Islamic philosophy and epistemology also have other important implications. Some works like Nagoka, Khan, Asute look at the social problems of Islamic banking and finance using parts of the Islamic moral economy paradigm. All of them agree that financialization have become the main ways that the Islamic banking and finance industry gets money. Organized tawarruq instruments are also very common, which is a financing arrangement where customers receive cash for their needs through a series of sale transactions. At the same time, hedge funds and swaps are being created and used in the Islamic banking and finance sector. The maqasid al-Sharia, which represent the higher objectives of Sharia, direct the ethical and social goals of Islamic finance. However, research indicates that while financial instruments such as tawarruq and hedge funds may adhere to Sharia rules on a technical level, they don't always fulfill the deeper, more meaningful objectives of the Islamic moral economy. Another major risk is legitimacy risk, which verifies whether the current practices genuinely reflect the maqasid principles, not just in form, but also in substance. It refers as to how the current practice of Islamic finance is legitimate beyond form-oriented understanding in relation to aspirational and maqasid ESG expectations. The idea behind Islamic doctrine is that everything we do should be linked and be expressed through al-maqasid al-Sharia, which means human welfare. Al-maqasid are thought to be the reasons why the one who made Islamic law did so, and they also show what the law is meant to do. In addition to its broad meaning, maqasid can be used as a key success indicator to measure how well Islamic banking and finance is doing. This shows that the current practice of Islamic finance is valid beyond a form-based thinking in terms of aspirational and maqasid standards. Several studies recommend using maqasid al-Sharia to examine trustworthiness in Islamic business, including banks. In 2008, Muhammad applied a method to turn the objectives of maqasid into performance measures, creating an index based on the concept by Abu Zahra. This index focuses on three key goals: educating people, upholding justice, and promoting social welfare. Ideally, Islamic businesses should align their operations with these objectives. However, Muhammad found that Islamic banks have not yet fully achieved optimal maqasid performance, with the education aspect lagging behind the others. Antonio in 2012 built on Muhammad's work by adding more specific measures. Also in 2012, Badawi introduced a new method to evaluate how well Islamic banking aligns with Najjar's interpretation of maqasid, which includes 8 directions: faith protection, life preservation, family and progeny protection, intellect preservation, wealth preservation, dignity and honor protection, environmental stewardship, and social and economic justice, and 4 additional guidelines including comprehensiveness, balance, flexibility, and adaptability, and prioritization to assess the outcomes of these goals. This approach helps determine whether Islamic banking meets the expectations of the Islamic moral economy. In 2015, Asute and Herincius further defined these tools by focusing on the importance of outcomes and their impact, emphasizing the need to measure the real-world consequences of Islamic banking practices. Moving on, Sharia risk looks at whether Islamic banking transactions follow both the letter and spirit of Islamic law and principles. It implies whether Islamic banking and finance transactions comply with Islamic precepts and aspirational principles beyond form by considering Sharia as the culmination of form and substance. It is a new type of risk that has been particularly linked to Islamic banking and finance. This means that Islamic banking deals with questions because they do not follow Islamic rules and principles that have been highlighted by both Bals and De Lorenzo. Sharia risk then is the risk of not following Sharia, which is related to validity risk. This means that the financial goods and services that Islamic banking and finance give are checked to see if they are fully or partially following one of the recognized schools of Islamic law, or if they follow individualistic Islamic rulings or fatwas, which are legal verdicts of Sharia scholars. Social risk specifies if the customers and investors have confidence in the religious integrity of Islamic financial operations. Also, whether Islamic financial institutions fulfill such trusts in terms of substance. This is crucial because if people do not trust the system, it is hard to sustain it. Early years of the Islamic civilization defined the foundation of the Islamic economic activities. This is so because Islam aimed to manage financial and economic activities in line with its morals and values by the Prophet of Islam. Sharia practiced Islam using its moral and legal guidelines. As we have already discussed, the legal reasoning employed by Sharia scholars is grounded in established evidences from the Sharia, aiming to issue rulings based on justice and obligation. However, the way some Islamic banking and finance products are implemented may at times conflict with the ethical expectations of individuals. This discrepancy can lead to doubts among the public regarding the legitimacy and trustworthiness of Islamic finance operations. It should be noted, however, that scholars do not disregard ethics in their rulings, but rather distinguish between what is legally obligatory, al-adl, and what pertains to personal ethical excellence, al-ihsan, of the individual rather than the domain of fatwa. Sustainability risk refers to sustainability and resilience of Islamic financial institutions in the sense of adhering to the Islamic moral economy principles in their operations, and therefore argues that convergence with conventional finance results in unsustainability of authentic Islamic finance. To back up the sustainability risk, a close look at how well Islamic banking and financial institutions have done shows that their CSR success has not been very good. Some further studies are available, such as Sari Ali, Dasuki, Hanifa and Hudayb, Hassan and Muhammad Noor and Asuthe, amongst others, and they all confirm that Islamic banks do not have any CSR programs, which means they have not done anything to help the environment or other sustainability issues. They show that Islamic banks' CSR views stay within the framework of zakat sharing and other one-time acts of charity. So managing social risks in Islamic finance is of utmost importance. And one effective way to do this is by using an ESG framework based on KPIs. Now, why is this crucial? Well, Islamic finance needs to perform well in terms of ESG, environmental, social, and governance. By adopting a KPI-based ESG framework, Islamic financial institutions can tackle these social risks head-on. This approach ensures they stay true to their ethical, social, and governance standards, which in turn builds greater trust and sustainability in their operations. So it is about making sure they not only meet the required standards, but also maintain their integrity and authenticity in the long run.